Today, August 4th, 2025, we will embark on a dramatic journey where a commercial strike from President Trump has upended the power game in Southeast Asia. Thailand and Cambodia, two seemingly small countries, have unexpectedly become the focal point of a geopolitical storm, leaving both China and the world stunned. A shocking secret is about to be unveiled, revealing bold strategies that could change the entire region. On July 15, 2025, President Trump announced a decision that shocked the world, imposing a 35% tariff on goods from countries suspected of being transit hubs for Chinese products evading US tariffs. The list, published by the US Department of Commerce, named Thailand and Cambodia, two countries seemingly outside the superpower conflict. US trade intelligence discovered that from 2023 to 2024, exports from these two countries to the US surged by 28%, reaching $12 billion US dollars. Chinese businesses had quietly shifted production lines to industrial zones here, turning them into sophisticated tax evasion centers. In Cambodia, the Sihanoukville Special Economic Zone is the center of attention. Hundreds of Chinese factories have sprung up, assembling products from components imported from Shenzhen, labeled Made in Cambodia for export to the US. For example, a batch of electronic chips is shipped from China, only undergoing packaging in Sihanoukville, then exported as Cambodian goods, avoiding the US 25% tariff. Thailand is also part of the game. As Southeast Asia's logistics hub, the rail routes connecting Yunnan, China, to Laem Chabang port have become a secret lifeline. Thousands of containers labeled Made in Thailand are actually re-exported Chinese goods, helping Beijing maintain a flow of 150 billion US dollars worth of goods annually to the US President. Trump did not stop at tariffs. He announced the strategy America as the center of the global supply chain, requiring countries to make their supply chains transparent to receive tariff exemptions and trade benefits. Thailand and Cambodia, two seemingly weak links, were put on the line. Cooperate with the US or continue to be China's backyard. But what made them choose an unexpected path? Don't go away, because right after this, a bold move from Phnom Penh will astonish you. On July 31st, 2025, the world was shocked when Thailand and Cambodia signed a bilateral trade agreement with the US, committing to supply chain transparency and combating origin fraud. This agreement was not just an economic contract, but a strategic vice. Thailand opened logistics data at Laem Chabang port, allowing the US to monitor every container. Cambodia agreed to let US-led joint committees inspect industrial zones in Sihanoukville, where Chinese enterprises hold 60% of the investment capital. The reverse origin tracing standard imposed by the US was a heavy blow. Every component, from screws to circuit boards, must prove it does not originate from China. Violations mean a ban on entry into the US, which consumes 40% of the two countries' goods. Moreover, Thailand and Cambodia committed not to sign new trade agreements with China from August 2025 to February 2027, cutting off 18 months of Beijing's economic lifeline. This agreement caused China to lose the transit route for 150 billion US dollars worth of goods exported annually to the US. But what makes Cambodia, a longtime ally of China, dare to take this bold step? The answer lies in a powerful figure, Prime Minister Hun Sen. On July 1st, 2025, he personally commanded the border conflict with Thailand in the Preah Vihear temple area, making the world think that Cambodia was firmly leaning towards China. But just 30 days later, he signed an agreement with the United States. A double-edged strategy or a masterful pragmatic plan? Prime Minister Hun Sen, who has ruled Cambodia since 1985, has built a unique family-run empire. In 2023, he handed over the prime minister's seat to his son Hun Manet, a former military general trained at West Point. But real power still belongs to Hun Sen, as chairman of the Senate and leader of the Cambodian People's Party, CPP. The Hun family controls every sector. Daughter Hun Mana runs the Bayon Media Corporation. Son Hun Manet holds the Ministry of Civil Service, while relatives occupy key positions in the military, judiciary, and economy. The Royal Cambodian Armed Forces, with 10,000 personal guards, do not serve the constitution but protect the interests of the Hun family. After the 1997 coup, he replaced opposition generals with loyalists, many trained in Beijing. The CPP, with 5 million members, controls nearly one-third of the adult population. Joining the party is the only way to secure stable employment or avoid isolation. The media is also tightly controlled. Hun Sen's Facebook page has 15 million followers, nearly equal to Cambodia's adult population. Channels like Bayon TV and CTN are owned by the family or close associates. Cambodia's economy depends on textiles, tourism, and casinos, with 60% of revenue from these sectors linked to Chinese or allied businesses. The Sihanoukville Special Economic Zone, with 200 casinos, is dubbed the region's money laundering hub. But when the US imposed tariffs and tightened supply chains, Hun Sen realized the risk. If dependence on China continued, the textile industry, accounting for 40% of GDP, would collapse. The agreement with the US was not to save the people but to protect the $2 billion annual cash flow into family-affiliated businesses. President Trump targeted this weakness. Instead of punishing the whole country, he attacked the Hun family's financial system, forcing them to be transparent or lose the US market. A move that required no military but struck directly at the heart of the empire. But will Hun Sen truly change course, or is this just a performance to protect power? Stay tuned, because next, we will explore how President Trump's carrot and stick strategy has transformed Southeast Asia. President Trump's strategy is a geopolitical masterpiece, using trade as a weapon, combining carrot and stick to reshape Southeast Asia. The stick is a 35% punitive tariff and supply chain oversight committees ready to exclude any country serving as a transit hub for China. The carrot is trade incentives, 100% tariff exemption for agricultural products, electronic components, and household goods, along with a $2 billion funding package from the DFC to upgrade port and logistics infrastructure. Since August 2025, the US has launched a program to train 10,000 engineers and logistics staff for Thailand and Cambodia over 5 years, from 2025 to 2030. Thai rice, with an export volume of 7 million tons per year, is fully exempt from US tariffs, boosting revenue by 15% to $800 million by October 2025. Cambodia also benefits. Textiles, accounting for 70% of exports, saw tariffs reduced from 20% to 5%, increasing turnover to $1.5 billion in just 3 months. But this strategy is not just economic. The US sends a message to ASEAN: be transparent to benefit, cheat, and be isolated. On August 5th, 2025, the Philippines and Malaysia sent delegations to Washington seeking to join the new trade network. Indonesia, with 80% of its goods exported to the US through Thai ports, also began reconsidering agreements with China. A domino effect is forming, but is it strong enough to overturn Beijing's influence? Since January 2025, China has quietly spent $500 million to support pro-Beijing groups in Cambodia, inciting border conflicts with Thailand in the Preah Vihear temple area. The goal is to divide ASEAN, preventing the bloc from uniting against pressure from the US. A Reuters report on August 10, 2025 revealed China provided military equipment and media funding to amplify tensions, hoping to create a power vacuum for the Belt and Road Initiative. But President Trump disrupted this plan. The trade agreement on July 31st, 2025 with Thailand and Cambodia not only ended the border conflict but also caused the two countries to withdraw their names from the US transshipment station list on August 15, 2025. Beijing lost an important logistics route, accounting for 20% of goods exported to the US through ASEAN, equivalent to 30 billion US dollars annually. The 15 billion US dollar investments in Sihanoukville, port infrastructure, and Yunnan Railway now lost their strategic value. The domino effect spreads. On August 20th, 2025, Myanmar and Laos began negotiations with the US to avoid tariffs. The Philippines announced a plan to monitor the supply chain at Manila Port on August 25th, 2025, committing to transparency with the US ASEAN. Once divided by Chinese loans, now faces an opportunity to unify under new rules. But China is not letting go easily. An internal report from Beijing, leaked on August 27, 2025, shows they are planning a counter-attack. What is this plan? On August 1st, 2025, China began its counter-attack, but not through direct confrontation. Instead, Beijing chose a covert strategy, increasing investment in Myanmar and Laos, two countries that have not signed agreements with the US. A $3 billion investment fund was established to build a highway connecting Kunming with Mandalay, aiming to maintain a logistics route alternative to Thailand. At the same time, China spent $200 million on media campaigns in Cambodia, amplifying the image of a reliable ally to attract Hun Sen. But this strategy faced major challenges. Myanmar, worried about being isolated from the US market, began bilateral negotiations with Washington. Laos, despite being dependent on $12 billion in Chinese loans, also signed a logistics contract with Japan to diversify investment sources. Meanwhile, President Trump pushed forward his strategy. The US announced a $1 billion support package to upgrade Manila Port, helping the Philippines become a new logistics hub, handling 500,000 containers annually. Indonesia, with $25 billion in exports to the US, also signed a memorandum of understanding with Washington, committing to transparency in 80% of its textile supply chain. Beijing, once thinking it could lock down Southeast Asia through loans, now faces the reality. The rules of the game have changed. But China did not stop. A secret document from Beijing, leaked on July 30, 2025, revealed a bolder plan than ever before. The leaked secret document shows China is planning to form a bilateral trade alliance with Myanmar, Laos, and Pakistan, aiming to create an alternative supply route to ASEAN. This $5 billion plan focuses on building new industrial zones in Mandalay and Karachi, targeting $10 billion in exports to Europe, avoiding the US market. Beijing also plans to spend $300 million to fund pro-China political groups in Cambodia to pressure Hun Sen. But this plan encountered major obstacles. Myanmar, after negotiating with the US, announced its withdrawal from the Belt and Road Initiative and rejected a $2 billion loan from China. Laos, though still dependent on Beijing, signed a contract with Japan to build the Vientiane port. Pakistan, facing a $15 billion debt crisis with China, also refused to join the new alliance. President Trump seized the opportunity. The US announced the Southeast Asia Trade Partnership Program, inviting all ASEAN countries to join a transparent supply network. Malaysia and Indonesia immediately signed memorandums of understanding, committing to monitor 90% of their supply chains from November 2025. The Philippines, with its upgraded Manila port, became a new export hub, handling 600,000 containers annually. Beijing, once dominating Southeast Asia through loans, now faces the risk of losing influence entirely. But the story is not over. A new factor is emerging that could change the entire landscape. Stay tuned, as the next part will reveal how Thailand and Cambodia are shaping the region's future. Thailand and Cambodia, once weak links, have become the front line in President Trump's strategy. Thailand, with its central logistics position handling 8 million containers annually at Laem Chabang port, has become a key hub in the US supply network. Since November 2024, Thailand has deployed a digital monitoring system, allowing the US to track 95% of exported goods, ensuring no Chinese components. The result? Rice and electronic component exports to the US increased by 20%, reaching 1 billion by the end of 2020. Cambodia, though dominated by the Hun Sen family, has also begun to change. Hun Sen announced tax reforms in the Sihanoukville special zone, reducing Chinese business ownership from 60% to 40%. This helped Cambodia meet US standards and retain $1.5 billion in textile export revenue. But these reforms were not for national interest, rather to protect the family's financial system from Washington's pressure. Both countries received $500 million support packages from the US to upgrade port infrastructure and train personnel. Thailand used the funds to build a high-speed rail system from Bangkok to Chiang Mai, completed in June 2026. Cambodia invested in Sihanoukville port, increasing handling capacity to 300,000 containers annually. These changes not only strengthened economic positions but also sent a message to ASEAN. Transparency is the path to prosperity. But can Thailand and Cambodia maintain this frontline position? A new challenge is emerging, involving other countries in ASEAN. The domino effect from the agreement between Thailand and Cambodia is spreading throughout ASEAN. Malaysia announced plans to monitor 100% of its palm oil supply chain, a key export worth $2 billion annually. Indonesia, with its wood and rubber industries accounting for 15% of export turnover, is also joining the US program, committing to transparency for 85% of its supply chain from December 2025. The Philippines, with the upgraded Manila port, is becoming a new logistics hub, handling 700,000 containers annually by early 2026. But not every country can easily participate. Myanmar, despite withdrawing from the Belt and Road Initiative, still faces internal political instability, making supply chain monitoring difficult. Laos, with its small economy, handles only 100,000 containers per year, struggling to meet the strict US standards. President Trump, recognizing this challenge, announced a $300 million support package to help Myanmar and Laos build digital monitoring systems. This transparency race is not just about economics. It is reshaping how ASEAN operates, from a bloc divided by Chinese loans into an alliance based on fair rules. But China is quietly preparing a new counterattack. A Bloomberg report on July 15, 2025 revealed a surprising plan. On July 20, 2025, Bloomberg released a shocking report. China is negotiating with India and Bangladesh to build a new supply chain route, completely bypassing ASEAN. This plan, valued at $4 billion, focuses on developing industrial zones in Dhaka and Mumbai, aiming to export $8 billion worth of goods to Europe and the Middle East. Beijing is also spending $200 million to fund media campaigns in Myanmar to pressure the new government. But this plan faces many risks. India, with its self-reliant India policy, does not want to become a transit hub for China. Bangladesh, although in need of investment, is concerned about public debt, which has already reached $10 billion with Beijing. Meanwhile, the US continues to expand its influence. On November 25, 2025, President Trump announced a $200 million aid package for Bangladesh to upgrade the Chittagong port, directly competing with China's plan. ASEAN, recognizing the opportunity, began an emergency meeting in Jakarta on July 30, 2025. The goal was to unify a common supply chain standard, ensuring all member countries comply with US transparency rules. Thailand and the Philippines led the meeting, proposing the establishment of a regional oversight committee with a budget of $100 million from the US and Japan. If successful, this plan would transform ASEAN into a strong economic bloc, no longer dependent on any superpower. But can ASEAN maintain this unity? An unexpected factor is emerging, involving a country outside the region. President Trump's strategy has proven that trade can be stronger than the military. Without aircraft carriers or aid, the US has reshaped Southeast Asia through transparency rules and shared interest. Thailand and Cambodia, once weak links, have become the front lines in the global trade war. Malaysia, Indonesia, and the Philippines, with new agreements, are building a transparent supply network, handling 10 million containers annually by 2026. But what is the bigger lesson? It is the power of fair play. Small countries no longer have to choose between two superpowers. They can develop on their own capabilities if they dare to be transparent and independent. Cambodia, though dominated by the Hun Sen family, is gradually adjusting to meet global standards. Thailand, with its central logistics position, has become a model for other ASEAN countries. The Philippines, with the Manila port, is rising as a new economic hub. ASEAN now faces a historic choice: unify under transparency rules, or continue to be divided by loans and influence. President Trump's victory is not in defeating Beijing, but in creating a trade network where small countries have a voice. From December 2025, ASEAN ports are expected to handle an additional 3 million containers annually, with 80% complying with US standards. A new order is forming, based on trust in rules, not military power. Dear audience, this is not just a story about Southeast Asia, but about how the world is changing. Please share this video, leave your comments with your thoughts, and subscribe to the Global Panorama channel so you don't miss the next analyses. I am Tuan Anna. See you again on thrilling journeys of discovery.